Party people! What's up, everyone? I'm Elle.
And I'm Tim.
And welcome to Where Does Food, the food history podcast that talks about the history of food. And today, we're talking about that cake.
Yeah, cake.
Cake.
Like the food.
Yeah, okay.
Like the food. We're not talking about someone's butt.
Tim, let me be real here. There were too many songs and pop culture references that I wanted to make at the start of this episode because, we're talking about that cake.
Yeah.
But I didn't. But I know you, and I also know our listeners had a very visceral image or reaction or memory or something or something happened to them and some image popped up in their brain, and that is going to be the intro. It's like a choose your own intro this morning.
Oh, okay. Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
So that's how we're feeling today because I'm sure your brain went to so many different things. But we're talking about the food cake. Tim, do you like cake?
Yeah, man, I love cake. I like pie more, but I love cake. But we already did pie. So
we're on to the next part of that.
Yeah.
Have you ever baked a cake and it fell in on itself?
Yeah, dude, I'm a terrible baker.
You keep saying that, but everything you describe baking sounds good. So
yeah,
I'm having a hard time.
I'm talking about my success stories, and there's like 4 of them.
Okay, Allen Iverson, let's just come on.
There's like 4 successful bakes, and then there's a bunch of non-successful bakes.
That's how you get better.
So you only talk about your success, That's the classic
I know, but
move.
I've also... Yeah, okay, bud. I'll give it to you, whatever.
Yeah, I can make a good chocolate chip cookie, and then
great old-fashioned.
Everything else is a crapshoot.
No
That's not
whiskey
baking,
sour.
though.
I know, 1 hour.
That's just mixology.
Man, you can fucking bake. All right, so there's 8 types of icing, apparently, in the world of icing.
Sure.
There's buttercream.
Yep.
Cream cheese.
Yep.
A glaze.
Yeah.
Royal.
Yeah.
Boiled frosting.
Yeah, I know that too.
Yeah, that's weird to me. Ganache. Oh, delicious. A fondant, which I always want to yell. Fondant! I don't know why. If I do that at any point, I apologize to all you guys. It just will happen. And then whipped cream icing.
Yeah.
So out of those 8, on that scale, what would you give cakes? 1 to 8.
1 to 8.
Or 0 to 8, I guess, if you just hate cakes. I don't know.
I do love me a good cake, man. I'm going to go, it feels too generous to go 6, so I'm going to go 5.
Okay. I'm going to try and get that up, though. At least to a 7. We'll see.
Yeah. It feels real generous to go to 6. I'm going to discourage you a little bit.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You're going to have to work for 6. All right.
All right.
You're over here talking about 7.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hey guys, welcome to the ad section. I'm here to tell you real quick about Anchor by Spotify. You may have heard us talk about Anchor at the end of our episodes, is because Anchor is the platform we use to distribute our podcasts. It's totally free. It helps us distribute our podcasts to different platforms. That's how we're on Apple Podcasts. That's how we're on Google Podcasts, CastBox, you name it. They've helped us do that. You can record directly on the app, on the webpage, so you don't even need a super fancy setup. It's super straightforward, totally free. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started on your podcast or whatever you like to do. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of the episode.
Let's get these eggs cracking, boys. Let's make some cake. So
many eggs in cake.
There is a lot of eggs in cake, and that's the secret, you guys. You got to whip them fucking eggs. If you want good shit, you got to whip them eggs.
Is that the secret?
Yeah, apparently. If you haven't had cake and you're wondering what cake is, which is a possibility, you're usually mixing flour and eggs and sugar and salt and butter, usually oil or margarine, just depending on how you're feeling or what the recipe calls for.
It also depends massively on the cake.
Yeah, massively on the cake. And then you're going to need that leavening agent. So that's going to be your baking soda, baking powder. That's cake. Usually you're going to have maybe some dried, or fresh, or candied fruits, just some sort of fruits in there. You've got nuts, different types of extracts that you can put in there. I mean,
all types of stuff.
Cakes are very versatile. You can do so many different things with them. And then, of course, literally just listed off 8 different types of icing that you can do. Plus, you can also cover it in marzipan.
And meringue.
And dude, there's so many things.
And there's more than one type of meringue.
If you have, honestly, we didn't have time, but if you really were feeling some type of way and you wanted a certain flavor profile to hit your mouth, you would be able to find the cake for you.
Pretty much.
Cake
was an early episode topic we talked about before we started this podcast. That was an early one that we pitched different ideas on how we wanted this show to look. Toast and cake, I remember very specifically. Those two things we were like, well, we could do this, and this, and try and angle it that way. So I'm glad that we finally are tackling it.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm super excited to actually learn about this thing that I know like cakes, like,
Right.
but I don't know the history
Why we do the cakes,
of cake.
which is,
Who the fuck started this and why are we doing this?
Tim, I'm so glad you asked because we're actually pretty familiar with them.
Oh, cool. His name was Bob D. Cake. And
I'd quick. And in 1970, he
cakes are only 50 years old.
could you imagine that? No, actually, it's the complete opposite, you guys. You may have heard of the Greeks.
I think we've heard of the Greeks
You ever
before.
heard of the Greeks on this show? So they actually called cakes plakas, which derived from the word flat. And pretty much these cakes, this is like the earliest like form of cakes. They're pretty much just made with nuts and honey.
Is it a pancake?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Did they
I don't
make-
know why.
did they make
I'm walking
pancakes?
away. There's the
Guys,
door.
the earliest form of cakes, pancake.
Pancakes.
Honey and nuts, huh?
Well, yeah, honey and nuts, which also, on the flip side of that, they had a satora, which was a flat, heavy cake. And then with that, this is where the Greeks are brilliant. So they used beer as a leavener in their quote unquote baked items.
Yeah.
So, like, so smart because, you know, the yeast,
Yeah, the yeast rises.
so clever.
Mhm.
They also use goat's milk for their cream cheese. So, like, they were the first ones to bust out the fucking cream cheese. Like, oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
like
thank
tangy,
you.
like tangy
Ugh,
sweet.
yeah, right. I appreciate the Greeks so much for that because I fucking love cheesecake. So thank you guys.
You know what? I do like a good cheesecake. I will
Yes.
say I am not the biggest fan of
like a
cream
cake.
cheese frosting.
Really?
Not the biggest fan of it. No.
Is it?
I'm
not-
not a
it's
cream
not
cheese.
tangy
I'm
enough,
not
it's
a cream cheese
guys.
guy.
I will say the icing can have a little bit of a different, way different consistency than what the
Yeah.
cheesecake would be. So
No, cheesecakes are fucking great.
yeah,
I love a cheesecake. Yeah, and they get better with time. It's weird.
Yeah, no, they do
Cheesecakes
for
get
sure.
good over time.
I don't know.
why.
Maybe it just
but,
takes everything to settle. But yeah,
so fucking good.
I
I
love
love a good cheesecake.
so yeah, thank the Greeks for
Yeah,
that.
thanks, Greeks.
And then we're going to the Romans, of course. Who else would we go to? So their name for the cake was a placenta, which I didn't really like.
No,
But
ew.
I know. But it derived no. But it derived from the Greek word for it, and then it was mostly used. So this is the Romans are why we do cakes for celebrations. Essentially,
You what?
you what? So
Shut the fuck up.
yeah. So those like the
So the
placenta
placentas.
was offered as an offering to the gods. And so it was
Holy
used,
fuck.
yeah, which is why.
So the Greeks are the reason why we eat cakes for breakfast, and then the Romans. I actually don't know if Greeks
We'll
were
go
eating
with
that
that.
for breakfast.
I mean, they
but
had a pancake.
it does sound like they really did just make pancakes.
Again, oats and honey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
And then, yeah.
And then the Greeks
the
were,
yeast one.
I mean, the Romans were eating placentas.
Yeah. But hey, you would be happy to know that these placentas resembled more like cheesecakes.
Oh shit!
Yeah. And had that little pastry base, or they were actually cooked in a pastry. So almost like
Yeah.
a Danish, if you would.
Okay, I
Yeah.
feel you.
They made up for it.
Yeah,
Shitty name, but they made up for it.
right. Is a cheesecake a cake or a pie?
You're going to laugh because I have a question similar to that later
Well, you
on
just
here.
said it was wrapped in a pastry. That sounds like a pie, but
Pie. I know, but we called it cheese pie.
I mean,
But not really, though, because you have it.
no.
Exactly.
We can call it a cheese. We can call it a cake if you want to call it a cake. But the fundamental question is, if you wrap a fucking thing in a pastry, is it a pie or is it a cake? Dead
It's
air.
a pie. It's a pie. It's a pie. Yeah, cut that shit out. No, it's a pie,
It's a pie.
right?
Sure.
Okay, well, then this answers my question for later.
Damn,
Then.
the whole episode's fucked now. She did all the research on cheesecake, and that's a pie, technically, so it's over.
It's over.
Yep. No.
All right, you guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up.
No, I think specifically it's got cake in the name. We'll give it cake, but
Yeah.
I will say if
I mean,
Romans
listen,
are wrapping
I'll
things
give you that.
because that's what the pie episode was so much about, wasn't it? It was just like, yeah, we just put things and we wrapped it in a pastry, and it was like,
Yeah,
oh,
because that's how
that-
they transported
And
it.
it's like,
yeah.
yeah, that was a pie, and so now it's like, well, we're doing the same thing, but maybe we're doing
That's
it with like
I mean, yeah, because they had sweet and savory
ingredients.
pie. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Tim, we'll go with that. We'll give it the Venn diagram.
Yeah, it's cake pie.
Cake pie. Pie cake. So the Latin poet Ovid refers to a birthday party and a cake being served.
No way.
Yeah.
No
So
way.
again, first little like bits of like, oh. And then on the other end, there was a Roman marriage ritual that originated where they would share a cake. the bride and groom would share a cake together.
Bro, what are we doing?
What do you mean? What are we doing?
We are just copy and pasting.
Yes,
I'm pissed.
copy pasta.
I'm tired of it.
Sorry.
I'm tired of it.
Listen.
Let's just take a hard right turn. Maybe a hard left. We've been going hard right for a hot minute. Let's take a hard left turn. Let's just keep Let's just keep doing what we're doing.
Kind of. Okay.
No, let's keep doing what we're doing. Let's just keep copy and pasting.
Copy
from
pasta. The good things.
Romans.
Yeah.
No, all the things.
The things.
We're following
just
right
kidding.
down the
I know
path,
we are. Watch it. Let it burn.
Yeah, all the things. Wait, celebrations, cakes, foods, government.
I was waiting. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're actually talking, this last one was fun because we're going to somewhere that we haven't really touched on yet in the map as far as food goes. We're going to the Vikings, not Minnesota, my friend. So the word kaka is an Old Norse word that served as the origin for cake.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, the Vikings were like, that's cake.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Vikings are cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're fucking sick.
Yeah, and there's also a lot we don't know about them, which is fun.
I agree with that too.
This isn't an episode about Vikings.
Absolutely not. But we want to shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out to the Vikings. The misunderstood.
Cut my life into pieces.
Yeah, misunderstood people, man. I feel like a lot of people view them as just like pure savages with like no sort of...
Well, yeah, because that's what I saw on TV, Tim. What do you mean?
With no sort of like,
context for what actually was...
For like them as like a civilized people. And also the fact that Viking culture is not just Norse.
Yeah.
Fun fact. Either way.
I like that.
They had a word that is the closest to cake so far.
That's super fun. Yeah.
That isn't placenta.
Ding. That's what we're going to learn from this episode. So, to your point earlier, initially the words cake and bread were interchangeable as the years went on.
Get the fuck out
I
of
know.
here.
It's very funny. And so, with that in mind, they pretty much...
Is bread cake?
Well, no, because hear me out. They used to pretty much describe, like, if you had two loaves of something, they'd be loaves. I don't know. I'm having a British accent, and then I'm saying words weird. I don't know what's going on. Loaves?
Or
Meatloaf? Loaves, because it's
loaves?
V. Yeah, it's loaves. That's why I don't know why my... Anyways, so...
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Now, your producers, can you help our grammar, please? Thanks. I wasn't that great in it anyways. But they used to refer to the smaller breads as the cake. And then the bigger one would just be the bread. So, I mean, it's not a scientific or any type of...
cake is bread and bread is cake.
Yeah.
Welcome to Where Does Food? Where we bake. Where we bake. We can't get our heads out the oven.
That's going on a t-shirt. So it was early...
Every once in a while,
yes.
I stumble into wit.
Yeah.
And then the rest of my life is just me being dumb. All right.
Okay, so yeah, it was early on that cakes were baked for special occasions since they were made with expensive ingredients. As we've seen in the past with most of these foods, you were only going to get access to it unless you were rich and you had access, in this case, to good ingredients.
Is it like the sugar aspect of it?
Mm-hmm. Sugar was expensive.
Yeah, it was.
Wasn't butter expensive? Well, no, because I guess it's a dairy product, so in theory
butter
shouldn't
and
be.
Eggs shouldn't be I think sugar was probably the defining.
Makes sense.
The defining factor in that, and I don't know, and I think there's also the level of like expertise and equipment. That was also something we haven't really talked about, how equipment barriers happen. Sometimes we do talk about patents and inventions of stuff, and then we talk about how that like elevates or exacerbates like people's enjoyment of something.
Absolutely.
And the commodifying of it. But we never really talk about why that happens. So, I mean, the reason being is that the moment you can get the layperson to be able to make something with the equipment that's available, that immediately makes it more accessible. So, ice cream was a great example of that.
Ice cream was a great example of that.
Where it was like, oh, now we can make ice cream at the house. You don't have to go buy it.
Go buy it.
Or be rich.
Honestly, yeah, that's exactly how it was.
Yeah.
Which, keep that kind of in mind, because with the way that...
Because Easy Bake Ovens really changed the game.
I fucking love... Apparently they're making a comeback.
Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, right. Because as with anything, that was good back in the early 90s.
Yeah, of course.
Late 90s. Yeah. No, Easy Bake Ovens making a comeback, but life did fuck some fucking Easy Bake Oven shit up, though.
Disgusting.
No, come on.
They're so bad.
Come on.
No.
Shit slapped.
Not ever.
From what I remember.
Yeah,
Question
not
mark?
once did it ever taste good, but okay.
So let's take this cake batter back, and I kind of wanted to talk about just the overall cake impact that it had,
Yeah.
because genuinely had no idea that cake was going to take me on this such a historic journey. So you're coming with me too. So the earliest examples were found in a Neolithic village where archaeologists were discovered oat cakes.
Oh, okay.
So there's your cake, which were crushed grains that were moistened and then compacted and cooked on a hot stone.
Oh.
So and they liken these to like biscuit cookies, essentially.
That's generous, but yeah.
Yeah, like like your tea time biscuits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a very thin cookie, essentially.
Damn.
So first, then we go to medieval. We go to medieval England. If I say it fast, people. Cakes were described as flour-based foods with sweetening, as opposed to breads, which were flour-based foods without the sweetening.
Yeah.
This was fun. And this is all, you're going to get so pissed off about this. So breads were also left upright during cooking while the cakes were flipped over multiple times, which was also the difference between them, as well as the size.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to take that? You okay with that one?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. We'll go with it. Got to even out the browning,
Oh, okay.
apparently. Right. Well, we didn't know. They didn't know.
Yeah.
They didn't know.
Well, they were developing it,
Exactly.
so
It was
they
like
knew. They
scientific
knew.
process.
Yeah, they knew. They just yeah.
Right.
Jesus.
No, I know.
I can't even imagine flipping cakes.
No.
Well, you flip
On a hot
You
stone.
flip a pancake, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
Your
They were
oat
just
cake.
that's what I'm saying. They were just making pancakes, bro.
Pancakes.
They were just making stone cakes and pancakes
Stone
and
cakes.
they were just making we're not talking like oven cakes here. You
No.
know what I mean?
No. Not there yet.
No.
We do
No.
in the Renaissance.
No.
This is where we get our first taste of the sponge cake,
The Renaissance.
because it was a non-yeasted cake.
Yeah, buddy.
So that's for you homies out there. It's gonna be egg whites, flour, and sugar, and then whip them egg whites up, boy.
Oh, so Genovese cake.
So then we go to the 18th century.
Yeah,
And
the egg whites, by the way, are the
That's
leavener and that. That's how they
Mhm.
add. Yeah, that's what adds the air.
that's why you don't need the yeast.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Eggs are cool. Just food
Yeah.
process chemical reactions are fucking cool.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, those cakes are great. They're so light,
They're so
airy,
whip,
fluffy.
yeah.
It's great.
It's so good.
Love them.
So around the middle of the 18th century, the beaten eggs took over the yeast as the preferred raising agents.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about that.
Yeah.
Solid job on that. This is actually where the idea of the cake mold came from, because
Oh,
they would
okay.
like pour it in these like tin hoop mold essentially,
Right. Yeah.
and then that's what they would use to bake. And then from there, that's kind of where like the idea of like a cake pan came from. So that was pretty cool. Again, 18th century, like that's
Right.
1700s, like very early.
Yeah, and you got to think, right, because we've kind of come back around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do a lot of different cakes, but I would say
yeah.
one of your most common cakes isn't necessarily the Genovese like egg white whipped cake. We do use not necessarily yeasted, but we do use like other, like we use leavening agents and shit like that. And typically your batter is just, it's a batter. It's got egg yolk and all that. You're not really, you're mixing that, not over mixing it, mixing it all up, and you have your leavening agents, and you pop in the oven. It creates a sponge,
Boom.
essentially.
Yeah.
So, but it is interesting to me that before we had those things accessible, it was like, oh,
Absolutely.
well, we can get this incredible texture
Yeah.
from a product that we can pretty much
But
get
mhm.
all the time. So I find that interesting. I like that.
Cool. Fantastic. All
Yeah,
right,
I like
that's
that
a
that took over like the main way to make a cake, because it was probably the cheaper way to make
Absolutely.
the cake.
Absolutely. Like I said, whatever they had access to. So then you had the Lancashire, which is very close to what the Romans were doing. Courting cake, which is a fruit-filled cake that was baked by the fiancée for her betrothed. So it actually sounds pretty good. It's a sponge cake with a shortbread base, and then it was topped with strawberries or raspberries, and then it was whipped cream.
Yeah, buddy.
Sounds pretty good,
That
right?
sounds fire as fuck.
So now we get to one of our favorite new topics, honestly, I feel like this season, the Industrial Revolution.
Nice.
Right? Okay, so we're in the 19th century.
Yep.
To your point, baking ingredients become more affordable. They're more readily available because of mass production and the railroads.
Yeah.
Shout out. So they're able to get to more people faster,
Yeah. You're also able to afford.
and they can afford to,
Yeah.
which is the biggest thing. This is when baking soda and baking powder enter the game for cakes.
Yeah.
This right here, and this is what happens. So now we're at the Great Depression, and there's a surplus of molasses.
Yeah. What did I tell you?
And this,
molasses, man.
And this, dude,
It was big.
is big because this is what starts and kicks off the idea of your cake bread mix, ready to go, all in the box, all in one go. Molasses, the Great Depression. This is what started that. And then you get to post World War II. It's known as the golden age of capitalism. This is where you might have heard of them. General Mills pops up.
Good old General Mills.
And also, this is interesting because this is kind of touching base to what you were talking about earlier, and how, so around this time, women had just kind of been confined back to the domestic spheres. Because you remember in World War II, they were out there working the industry, working factories, like keeping the economy afloat while men were fighting the war. So they're keeping wartime efforts going here at home. But once the war was over, they were kind of like, all right, like you guys can go back home now. And they were kind of like not satisfied or satiated with that. And they didn't really care for quote unquote baking cakes anymore. They gave a fuck less about baking cakes.
Women's suffrage.
Let's
get into
right?
it. Cakes is taking us on a journey.
Right? Okay. But just like America, we succumbed to really good marketing, apparently. So Ernest Dieter, he was inspired to find a solution to this problem. And so,
whoa,
yeah,
can we not call it a problem?
Yeah, he
call it.
He was like, people aren't making cakes anymore. That's a problem.
For the fucking sake of my sanity, he called it a problem.
He called it a problem.
We are not
calling
that a problem.
I think it's hilarious, personally. We're not calling that a problem, but yeah, no, they were troubled. They were significantly troubled because no one was fucking making cakes. No one was buying the cake boxes. So that, you know what they thought? They're like, we're gonna tweak the frosting, and so they would add the frosting in there, and so women could get their creative juices flowing, and they could start to decorate cakes. And that's pretty much where the idea of cake decoration came from.
The 60s?
This is a little bit before the 60s.
Oh, okay. Before the 60s.
We're still in that like post World War II, like everyone's coming home. Oh yeah, no, we're not there yet.
Damn.
Yeah, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Also, I do want to clarify something here when we're talking about icing. So you got the fondant icing?
Yeah. Also the fact that it's called different things, right? It's like frosting and then icing.
Yeah.
Same shit. We're talking about.
It's literally the same shit.
We're talking about frosting. Because I call it frosting.
It's frosting. So that's sugar water. Sorry, I don't know. Sugar, water.
Sugar water.
Sugar water, gelatin, veggie fat, or glycerin.
Are you talking about fondant?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then marzipan is the
almonds.
Yes, it's the almond meal, honey, and sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Deliciousness.
Yeah. When you have a date on those? Was that like pretty early on?
It was pretty. Well,
I say early on, but you know what I mean, like cake decorating wise.
No, cake decorating wise came about the 1940s ish.
Okay.
Yeah. So now we're starting to get into that homemaker, shift, right? Like, no, come, you guys, you want to build family?
Yeah.
That sounds nice. You want to stay at home. You want to make cakes all day,
yeah,
right?
Shout out to whoever like commodified fondant and marzipan, because you can make it. Obviously, it's not like a hard thing to make, but like, oh my god, what a waste of time that is. When you can buy perfectly normal, like some shit really is just like, just buy it.
Just buy it. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Pumpkin pie is one of those.
People are like, no, it's from scratch, and it's like, no,
pumpkin pie is one of those where people are like, you got to buy like the little mini, you got to buy the little mini,
little gourd pumpkin things.
Yeah, the squash, whatever.
Why? Yeah,
I mean, technically it's a squash. Are pumpkin squash? Yes, they are. But like you buy those and you bake them and you scoop them out. It's like, dude, Libby's literally does it and they do it the best. So just like buy.
Just let them handle it, dude.
Like they got it. Same process. Some shit really is just like, yeah, dude, just buy it.
Honestly, that makes me really happy though. Yeah, just fucking buy it full set. So that's pretty much coming into the modern world. Like that's pretty much where we're at with cakes. Once we hit the commodification process of it, that was it. I did kind of want to briefly go over just like some cake staples.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, you got buttercream. It's cream, butter, sugar, eggs, flour. Also, I didn't know this, but apparently it's also called the 1, 2, 3, 4 cake. Have you heard of this before?
No.
Okay. So apparently it's 1 cup of butter,
Oh, okay.
2 cups of sugar,
Oh, okay.
3 cups of flour, and 4 eggs.
Right.
It allegedly originates from North Carolina from American pioneers. So for like forever ago.
Okay. That's the
The 1, 2, 3, 4
buttermilk?
cake. Yeah, it's like a butter cake. But
yeah.
yeah, which I'm okay. Be interested to try it. Then you got the angel food cake. So that's that light airy cake that you see. And that's the egg whites.
Yeah.
Then you got coffee cake. And that's usually like your breakfast tea or your tea cake. And it usually has a crumb topping.
Yep.
So good. That's aka a streusel or a light glaze drizzle on top of that. Well,
Yeah.
usually both if you're lucky.
Yeah. And that one, or at least common versions of that,
Mm-hmm.
have a sort of flaky's not the word, but it's a different texture. It's not the same. It's more bready. That's what I'm trying to say. It's got a little bit more.
It is more crummy.
It's got a more bready texture as
Yeah.
opposed to like a sponge cake.
Yeah, I mean they're both technically cakes, but it's like I feel
Yeah,
more
but that-
heartily flavored. Like it's
But-
more hearty with the crumb cake. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing about
Breakfast
cakes is like
sorry.
that's the thing about cakes is when you're talking about like angel food cake and a sponge cake, those two textures are vastly different.
Yes.
They are not the same, like
Yes.
at all. I mean, if you don't think hard about it, you're probably just like, yeah, cake is cake. But like coffee cake is nowhere fucking near
No.
texturally the same, and it's not. If take off everything, take everything
All
off,
the
and
toppings
just
off. Absolutely.
literally just eat it right as it's baked. It is not the same thing. It's much closer to a bread product than it is. It's like an ultra sweet bread essentially.
I was about to say I think it's very interesting that you made the bread comparison because it is more of a bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know,
I didn't think about it like
talk
that.
about we've talked about brioche all the
Mhm,
time,
mhm.
and brioche is considered like a sweet bread. I mean, brioche is borderline a fucking cake. Like some brioches are borderline a cake.
And it's like I'm thinking, and it's like some of the best burgers I've had were on a brioche bone.
Yeah, and those are they're sweet, but they're a little bit
Right.
on the savory end. There are literally brioches that are like swirled with cinnamon and sugar.
Mm.
Like there are vanilla
Mm.
cream brioches.
So
there are
good, dude.
tons of different brioches, and some of them are borderline cakes. Like 100% banana bread is a cake.
Okay, that was my question. I was going to
cake.
ask you if you considered banana bread a bread or a cake.
That's a cake.
And it's like off of what we're describing
Again,
now.
Is cake bread?
Apparently a cake is
I
just a
mean-
small bread.
You know what? I know we're making that joke. Cake is 100% bread.
It is bread.
It's just a type of
I
bread.
know we keep it's a
It
sweet
really
bread.
is just a type of bread. Like when you break it down, and it's just like we make it a little differently, sure, but I would almost view that as like maybe a quick bread. It's like a quick sweet bread
I
when
was
you
gonna
think
say-
about it.
I was going to say I'm not familiar with the bread making process, so sorry I didn't get involved in that. But like isn't the process somewhat the same when you talk about making a bread and then making a
Yeah.
cake?
Yeah, and we've talked about flatbreads
Yeah.
before, and
Yeah.
that's a quick savory bread. I
Absolutely.
mean, we're talking about non-yeasted doughs. We've
Mhm.
definitely talked about non-yeasted doughs that are considered
That's true.
like a bread.
Yeah.
I would say that the anytime you're using yeast, it's going to be a little bit more of an arduous process. But there are still yeasted cakes. There's still
That's true.
yeasted
Yeah.
baked goods like that. So.
I'm glad we figured that out. That's fun. All right.
Yeah, I mean
Cake is bread.
They pretty are. They pretty are. Jesus, they pretty much are. I mean, they are intertwined.
We'll go with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, then we've got cheesecakes, which are just per
Pies.
this, it's a custard pie.
It is custard pie.
It's a custard pie.
100%. It's like you ever had buttermilk pie?
Yes, dude. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, right. Like that's buttermilk pie. That thin layer of the buttermilk mixture
Mm.
that settles in the oven. Texturally reminds me a lot of cheesecake. It's just it probably doesn't hold
yeah,
up as well,
okay.
just because like they're different products.
Yeah.
One is a
Really different.
cheese and the other one is
Mhm.
not, so that's the difference. But yeah,
I like
yeah,
that. That's a good
cheesecake-
comparison.
I've always thought cheesecake was pie.
Yeah. I've never considered it to be a cake. I'll give you that.
Yeah,
Cheese pie.
but I do like the fact that it's called cheesecake because it is made of cheese and it does typically resemble a cake more than it does a pie.
That it does.
Yeah,
That's usually
like when you're
looking.
looking at it,
Mm.
at least the modern interpretation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's always like a little crust on the bottom, and it's typically not getting wrapped, and then it's it's more cake-like.
Yeah, I wonder if like when the Romans whenever they made it, it was probably like an oat bottom, right? And then the goat cheese on top.
Yeah, probably
interesting
mixture of fucking ancient grains or some shit.
All them ancient grains.
Those ancient grains, man, it probably tasted like shit.
100%.
Yeah.
It was not good. It was definitely savory. I don't think it was probably sweet at all. And no matter how much honey they put on it.
Yeah. I mean, it probably could have been sweet. It just wasn't tasty.
No. Definitely not. Not my birthday cake.
No.
But speaking of cakes, I do want to mention there's so many different shapes that you can get cakes in. You've got bundt cakes and cake balls and cake pops and cupcakes and layer cakes and sheet cakes and from a previous episode, sweet Swiss roll cakes.
Yeah.
There's so many types.
And bundt cakes are delicious. Delicious.
Dude, I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't had a good bundt cake. So until I can have a good bundt cake.
You work in Murfreesboro.
Yeah. And
nothing bundt cakes is
I've had such a bad experience with them.
How?
I don't know. And please don't take like.
Their red velvet is out of this world.
Okay.
Good.
All right. We'll go.
So good.
We'll go for lunch one day.
Yeah, we'll
Why don't we
eat
do
a whole bundt cake.
Do you get an hour for lunch?
No.
Oh my God.
No, I get 30 minutes. I'm a peasant.
I'm gonna bust you out. All right.
Yeah.
So
get back to work.
We'll get some bundt cakes. Yeah. No. Sorry. But I've heard people like rave about bundt cakes.
Yeah, dude.
But I just
nothing bundt cake
personally
is good.
have not had any good bundt cake. So
until
that happens, it's just not gonna be up there for me. So. Sounds like we'll change that soon, though. And then I also wanted to mention cake flour because some cake recipes call for that. And just to clarify for anyone that was wondering,
it's a finer powder.
Essentially, yeah. It's got a higher starch ratio to gluten, and so
because you don't want gluten to develop. You don't want to
which is I feel like is kind of counterintuitive when you talk about.
Well, that's why. Well, that's like the whole thing, right? It's like that's why it's the argument of like, are we talking about bread and cake, and like because like especially at this point when we think of cakes, we are trying to reduce the amount of gluten developed because you don't want that kind of pulley texture from your cake. You want your cake to be soft.
Yes.
And so you just don't want to overmix that as opposed to bread where you literally need it. So it can develop gluten because that's what's going to give it its structure.
No, we don't like that.
Yeah, not for cakes.
Not for cakes. You know what else isn't for cakes? This nickname for sprinkles. So apparently there's parts.
Jimmy's.
Dude, what the fuck?
Okay.
Can we talk about this?
I'm gonna fight back on it.
No, please do, because I'm confused.
Because it's the whole thing that it was like a racist thing. Is not actually confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not confirmed. That's a theory of why they were called Jimmy's. But it's not confirmed. And by the way, people of Jersey, you keep calling them fucking Jimmy's if you want. All right? Give me a vanilla comb some Jimmy's.
That's fucking okay.
Yeah.
Jimmy's. Yeah. And then apparently in the UK, sprinkles are also referred to as hundreds and thousands.
Okay. I think the whole thing, don't quote me on this, but I think the whole thing with the Jimmy's thing was that, like, the idea is that it was, like, a dude's name who happened to be a black man, like.
Okay.
But, like, there's no historical context of that, and, like, there's no way to prove that ever happened. So, yeah. I personally, I'm not going to buy into that Jimmy's is, I don't know, man. Jesus, not everything has to be.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive and I just don't want fucking the coolest nickname for sprinkles ruined. But but I don't know. To me it's speculative at best.
Okay.
So keep calling them Jimmy's, man.
I
call them Jimmy's.
All right.
That's fun. It's fun to call them Jimmy's.
It's definitely different. We'll call them Jimmy's.
Can I get some chocolate Jimmy's? Thanks.
Instead of sprinkles.
Even though if you say that around here, no one's going to know what you're talking about.
I literally had no fucking clue. That's why I thought it was so wild to me. I was like, Jimmy's. And you're like, Jimmy's. And I'm like, what the fuck, Tim? Of course.
Yeah, no one's going to.
So.
Yeah, no one's going to.
Get some Jimmy's.
Yeah, you can't go to like Culver's.
in
Middle Tennessee and be like, hey, man, can I get some Jimmy's on that ice cream cone? Thanks.
I'm like, what? Jellies? You want some jellies on it?
Yeah, no, I want Jimmy's, bro.
Jimmy's. Sprinkles, thank you.
Sprinkles.
We'll spread the vernacular.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
We'll make it the Middle Tennessee lexicon.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. Oh, we're not doing it. So let's take this cake out of the oven, Tim.
Okay.
Let's let it cool. Throw some icing on there, because rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake.
Put that shit on there. No,
Yeah, it's also not like trimming your cakes is a rookie thing to
oh
do.
man,
like you got to trim it to make it proportional. And
so I do want to know, like, I guess I misspoke earlier. You know, cake, while nothing too wild and crazy has happened with the idea of it, there are dedicated baking shows. And while they're not just baking cakes on there, they're baking other things on there. They're baking a lot of cakes, and I feel like that has what a shift. And I think that also just a shift in popular culture. We're having such an introduction of food and all these food episodes and food shows, and here we are.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of the baking shows have kind of ruined normal cakes. Like no one. You know what I mean? Like they're so fucking good looking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've sort of ruined.
We can't just have a normal cake.
No, it's got to be fancy. It's got to be a fancy cake. No, I love those shows though. It's great. Well, not all
me
of
too.
them, but like there's some good ones out there.
There's definitely
for sure.
I mean, yeah, no, a lot of the words when I was researching cake, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I do know what that word is, but I've heard it so many times. But yeah, what is it exactly?
Yeah.
So
is that cake, man?
Dude, that's cake. You put it at 5. So what are you thinking? Out of 8, that was our scale.
It's staying at 5.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, it's staying at 5.
I still saw it. You know, I'll take it.
Yeah. There's just cake is fun. It was good. I mean, I like that Greeks and Romans have their impact on it. But other than that, there's not much to it.
No. And the fact
that's not to say that it has a weak history. I'm just saying there's nothing, surprising about it. It is very like it. I felt well. I will give the credit to how the Genovese cake was like at one point was like the cake, and then we started to, Industrial Revolution came along and we developed baking soda, baking powder as a commodity that was easily accessible, and that kind of reverted the cakes back to a different leavening technique. Yeah. And that's, to me, I believe that's the most common cake that you see now. It's just kind of your classic, like, yellow sponge.
Absolutely.
Like, you're not necessarily...
That's it, dude. You're not doing anything else.
The egg white cake. Although it is very good.
Absolutely.
Tasty cake. I mean, and we also didn't... There's so many different cakes, and we really haven't necessarily... go deep into any one particular.
That's an hour in and of itself.
Yeah, one to make a cake, but it's fine. It's like whatever. You've seen them. You've seen them. There's stuffed cakes and geode cakes and ice cream cakes and all types of cakes. But they all just it's all just on the backs of that. And the moment we got to the box cake, it was over, baby.
Absolutely. And I will say, like, I was kind of genuinely surprised that cakes have always just been around for celebration. Like, I don't know. I was expecting some sort of twist or some sort of this big moment in time was what. And it was like, oh no, we've always just used cakes to
like the French or whatever.
Yeah, no, right.
But like Romans.
Marie Antoinette was like, oh no, none of that happened. It was just it's always been something that people have used to celebrate. So I guess that's kind of cool in and of itself, though. It's carrying on tradition. But all right,
staying out of 5 for me.
Staying out of 5.
Welcome to the end of the podcast, guys.
Fuck yeah, Tim. Let's go.
Guys, this is Where Does Food. If you liked this whole ordeal, awesome. You Hopefully. Guys should check us out at anchor.fm/where-does-food.
What?
You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're on CastBox. We do different stuff. We're out there. You can find us. You can also listen to us on our website, wheredoesfood.com.
Yeah, we have a website.
Yeah, it has a little thing about why we do this, and it's for no reason. Spoiled it for you. No, but you can go there, and you can also listen to the podcast there, and it's also just a good way to you can find the podcast.
It's pretty cool.
And that'll also link you to the Anchor website as well. You can follow us on Twitter at WhereDoesFood.
Yes.
You can follow me on Twitter at TimWehunt, and you can follow Elle on Twitter
at capital L 3_ Chapo with 1 P.
There we go.
Woo! There you go.
Took us almost 20 episodes, but she finally spelled it all the way out for us.
Nah.
You can also find all that in the episode description. That way you don't have to try to remember any of that. Yeah, go give us a follow. Interact with us. We typically, on the episodes, at least on Spotify, we ask the same rating system question. So, you can let us know on there.
Yeah.
You can also, interact with us on Twitter about what you rank any specific food. And you can also just, talk about food at us and towards us.
Please.
Food is a big deal in our lives, and it's a big deal in my life. So I will always oblige a good conversation about different foods.
What's some food?
I believe that is the read.
Crushed it,
That
as
is
always.
the whole thing.
That's the whole thing. Yeah. That's it. That's
it.
cake. Yeah.
You guys have a good one.